¿Cómo estás? Oh, bien, bien.
¿Hablo español?
Ah, poquito.
Wow. Atlanta's running backs, obviously, they've been playing well, and that's a challenge you guys are going to take a look at.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome challenge. We look forward to it. They've been running the ball incredibly well. Devontae is a great player. I had a chance to catch up with him at the Pro Bowl. Great guy, great player. Look forward to the challenge. I'm sure our defense does. Tevin is outstanding receiving back and has done a fantastic job for him. Had an outstanding game last game, and it's going to be a fun challenge for all of us.
You mentioned it in the Meadowlands 2 weeks ago. How much are you looking forward to going against Julio Jones?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun matchup for our defense, fun matchup to go against their offense. They throw the ball a whole lot. Matt Ryan's been having a phenomenal year, so we're going to have a good time with that challenge as well.
Richard, when in your career do you feel like you really understood what route concepts were coming before the snap and, were able to understand how offenses were attacking you guys?
Probably my second year, the beginning of my second year, end of my first year. Just getting acclimated. A lot of teams run similar plays. They'll alternate formations, alternate the personnel and who's in what spot, but overall the concepts remain the same. A lot of people stem or have a base work in the West Coast. Some people like Chip Kelly's offense kind of bases in the spread, so it's a little different. But majority of teams run similar concepts and sprinkle in a few new plays and nuances throughout. But after a while, you get used to seeing the same things.
You mentioned you've gotten to know Julio through the years. Are you guys somewhere where you connected at all? Or?
Yeah. We've connected throughout. I mean, we've connected at the Pro Bowl. We've connected at various events at the Super Bowl. Had some great conversations. I and Nuke Hopkins sat down and had a pretty good chat just about ball, growing, and life. He's a fascinating dude.
Was that before or after the playoff game? I mean, did you know him kind of before that playoff game?
I did not know him after. That was my second year. I didn't know him before then.
What distinguishes him from other great receivers?
Well, I mean, he's a workhorse. Whether it's a run play, a pass play, he's going to work. He's going to be blue collar. He's going to block hard. He'll go between the tackles and block. He'll crack block. I think sometimes you see receivers not really doing that as much, not being asked to do that really. But his team asked him sometimes to go between the tackles and block a linebacker, and he'll do his best to do his job, and you can respect that.
What did Dan Quinn help you do to take your game to a different level while he was here?
He did a great job of just furthering our understanding of ball, furthering our understanding of concepts, what to expect. But he was really more of just keeping us on the stuff we were already on, celebrating each other, celebrating our uniqueness, celebrating our togetherness, our brotherhood, and that's what we did. That's what we took from it.
How hard is it to see coordinators go and become a head coach, or is it not difficult?
It's not difficult at all. It's where you're genuinely happy for them. You're excited. Excited to see them. That's their dream. That's something they've always wanted to do. So you're happy that they get to achieve their dreams too. You don't want to be selfish and want to keep them to yourselves the whole time. He's a great man, a great coach, and happy to see him having success.
He was saying in terms of flipping corners that in your case it maybe took a little bit longer or not longer, but it did. But there is just sort of a transition to being able to be able to do that pretty seamlessly. I mean, did you feel like it's gotten easier to do that the last couple of years when they've asked you to do it more? Or?
Well, it gets easier the more you do it. I mean, anything. If they don't actually do something, if you never dribble with your left hand and they only actually dribble with your right, you're not going to be great at dribbling with your left hand. But if they actually dribble with both, then you'll be adept at it. But it's been something that's been fun for me. Whenever they ask me to do it, whenever the challenge presents itself or the team, it's always their decision. It's not like I get to pick and choose which games I do it. But it's always been fun for me.
Do you find out like Wednesday when you show up for work what the plan is?
I mean, sometimes I find out in the middle of a game. Sometimes I find out on game day. Sometimes we're having trouble on the other side, and they'll be like, well, you go follow him from now on, and it is what it is. You figured out, good enough player to get it done.
He said tracking the deep ball was actually one of the more challenging aspects of doing that. Have you found that, or?
No, I mean, tracking deep ball is fine. It's just the footwork. The footwork is different. The footwork from side to side is different. You know, it's like asking the left tackle to switch to right tackle. You know, you rarely ever see that. You know, you hear a lot about corners flipping, but you don't see great tackles following D ends. You see Von Miller on the right. You don't see the left tackle move to the right to follow Von Miller, but you know that's nobody's business, right? You know, it's just one of those things.
What part of on you when that happens, but that's also asking more of Deshaun and Jeremy, isn't it? Because they're going to have to move around too.
100%. Well, they've always moved around, honestly. You know, Jay Lane has played both sides his whole career. He's, you know, usually been a right or a left, and been in the slot. And Shed has played the same thing. Shed played the slot the whole season last year. Well, about half the season last year. So, you know, something they've been used to doing. I've probably, you know, I've gone through every regime and everybody. So I've always been in the same spot.
There was some conversation, I think it was the Giants receivers talking about Norman not matching up on Odell Beckham Jr. Have you ever thought about, like after a game, calling out other receivers for not matching up against you?
Yeah, I said something like that in my press conference. I thought after the game, I said that nobody ever gives receivers flack for that. Nobody gives receivers flack for subbing out the game. Nobody gives receivers flack for not following a corner. And like I said after the game, it's because they don't have any more power over it than we do. You know, people are like, oh man, you're not following him, you're scared of him. It's like, I don't call the defense. I don't call the plays or anything. They call the plays. I do what they tell me to do. And the receivers are the same way. They run the plays that they're told to run. You know, they don't get to go out there and make stuff up. So, you know, people need to understand that, but obviously it makes for great talking points, I guess, for the people who don't know football and don't know anything about anything. You know, gives them a conversation to be had. But it is a funny thing when receivers sub out the game and the corner has to stay out there through, you know, another receiver running a fade, another receiver running a fade, then the star receiver comes back in and runs the fade route, and they're like, oh, he caught the ball on him. It's like, well, this is my 1,000th, you know, play running a fade, and he just came in fresh off the sideline, you know. But, you know, it's just corners, stress on the corner.
You play both positions. Which one's harder?
Corner.
Why?
Because you never leave the field. You don't get to leave the field. You don't get to sub. You don't get to rotate. If there's two receivers out on the field, you're out there. You know, it's not like they get to, you know, we get to swap. Oh, this receiver went out the game. Oh, somebody else comes in. It doesn't matter. If they're tired, they get to sub out and bring somebody else in. You know, that was one of the challenges when we played Denver in the Super Bowl. You know, they're rotating their receivers in and out every 3 plays, and we're out there. You know, they get to get fresh. They get to get a breather, a break. You know, sometimes the receivers never even go back to the huddle. They'll just run off to the sideline, and you turn around, you're 60 yards down the field, and the next receiver's standing there. You know, but that's something people don't think about playing corner.
As a defense, when you face a team like Atlanta, #1 in all these categories, or you mentioned Denver in the Super Bowl, Saints a couple years ago, how much do you guys embrace that challenge when you know a team's coming in doing what they're doing?
It doesn't make much of a difference to us. You know, because at the end of the day, we focus on what we control. We make it more about us and the job we do. You know, if we execute and we do things we're supposed to do, then we'll have a chance to be successful. If we don't, then we won't. You get caught up in rankings and things like that. You get caught up in the peaks and the valleys, just like Pete always says. Treat everything like a championship opportunity, so you always treat it like you're playing the #1 offense. You start treating it like you're playing the number 32 offense because they're the number 32 offense. Then they go put up 500 yards on you because they're still pros. They're still getting paid to do this. So we don't get caught up in any of that.
Isn't there still part of you that relishes the opportunity, though, to go up against one of the best receivers in the game, like last week against Brandon Marshall, or this week potentially against Julio Jones?
Yeah, I mean, it's some selfishness to that. That you know, as a competitor, you love the challenge, but you know, I don't let it really affect me throughout the week or through my game planning or preparation.
You mentioned how difficult cornerback is. Can you try to describe to people who don't have to do it how the rules are set against your job?
Well, a receiver can push you down the field. A receiver can grab you, pull you, and there's no penalty for that. If you touch him, if you try to defend yourself, then if you push him past 5 yards, there's illegal touching. That's an automatic first down. So even if it's 3rd and 50, that's an automatic first down. If you're standing there in your own spot and they run into you and they call it illegal contact, that's an automatic first down, whether it's 3rd and 4th and 50, 4th and 15. If you're set up for an easy interception and they tackle you to the ground, that'll be a 10-yard penalty, no loss of downs, no anything. You know, they'll probably get that 10 yards back through another penalty or something. Holding, automatic first down. Every penalty that can be called on a defensive back just about is an automatic first down. So very difficult to play the position.
How far into your career did you adjust mentally to that or have to be aware of that?
The first year, yeah. I mean, that's why it's different to play defensive back now than it was 10, 20 years ago. You know, everybody's like, oh man, the game's getting more finesse. Well, you can only be so aggressive. You know, you got Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes and those guys. You know, it'd be difficult to play in this day and age. Some of the best DBs to ever play this game would have a difficult time playing in this age because it's not made for DBs to be great. You have to be a phenomenal thinking man, and even if you're in great spot and great position, you might get a PI like I got last week. You know, where you're in great spot, you get pushed down the field, and they call defensive pass interference when there's literally nothing. I got pushed with two hands, you know. But that's the refs. The refs aren't even in position to call PI for the defense. They're standing behind the defensive back, so they can only see what you do to the offense. They can't see anything he does to you, and they say that frequently.
What's your definition of hand fighting? How do you understand that?
It's when both sides are involved in it. Both sides have their hands on one another. You know, if a defensive back is holding, you know, that's holding. You know, but when a receiver has two hands on him and pushes him down the field and then catches the ball a second later, you know, usually most people would consider that pass interference. But obviously we got to play defense. They want to see points scored, so that's what they're going to see.
Is part of the problem inconsistency with the way it's called from one officiating group to the other?
Part of the problem is they want to see points scored. That's part of the problem. So, you know, when they want to see points scored, they're going to see points scored regardless. They're not going to punish them as much for missing a OPI as they are for missing a DPI. You know, they said the OPI in the Green Bay game, that was 63 yards or so, was a missed call. A 63-yard missed call. That could have potentially cost them the ball game. But they're not gonna kill them for that because it allowed them to score points. They want to see more points. They don't want to see defensive records broken.
You've known Desmond Trufant since you were teammates with Marcus. You played in the Pro Bowl with him last year. Just what have you seen out of him as a player, and how good is he right now?
He's playing fantastic football. He's tackling well. He's anticipating well. He's playing the ball better than he has in years. That's one area I think he's grown a lot is playing the football. Usually, you know, when he was younger, he'd just be going for PBUs. He'd be really excited that he knocked the ball down. And we had a conversation when I saw him that offseason. I was like, man, you're making a lot of PBUs, but if you catch them, they like you even more. You know, they don't get another shot at going at you. You know, you can end games, you can change games that way. And I don't know if it got through to him, but he's changed his line of thinking. He's been going after it.
What was your reaction when you saw Julio 300 yards 2 weeks ago?
I was surprised. I wanted to see who he did it against. And, Carolina is usually a very stout defense, so very surprised. But he's a great ball player. So, he led the league in yards last year. He always is in the top 2-3 in yards. He's always making impact. If he's on the field, he's gonna give you a full day's work.
When was that conversation with Desmond, and how did that come about?
Maybe the summer of 14, I think. And something like that. And I think I saw him at my softball game. He was there with his brother, and it was just random conversation.
Did you follow him much when he was at UW?
Yeah, just because when he was at UW, True was here. So, he'd always talk about him, and we'd keep an eye out on him.
How good can he be? I mean, is he already, in your mind, one of those upper echelon?
He can definitely be. He definitely can. He at times plays at as high a level as you can play at. Then at times he can get lulled to sleep and have mental lapses just like everybody else.
Did you watch any film of these guys last week during the bye, or did you kind of put football aside?
No, I watched some film on them. I watched the games that they played before. I watched them play Denver. I mean, a lot of their stuff is similar. Everything's off the run game, predicated off the run game. They run game, then they play action.
Did Denver give you any blueprint on how to stop Julio? I mean, he only had 2 catches.
Yeah, but they ran for 150 or something, so they just didn't throw it to him as much because they were so successful in the run game. I guess there were some things that they did well, and there was others that need to be corrected. But we'll have our plan, and we'll try to execute our game plan.
I think you said recently that KJ Wright's been your guys' most underrated player. What do him and Bobby Wagner do that might not be obvious to the public that's important for you?
Well, Bobby calls out trench calls. He gets us in the right spot every play. Gets us lined up. They do a great job in the passing game, eliminating a lot of those routes. They do a great job of play recognition, being in the right spots, running through gaps, getting a lot of tackles for loss. But I think in this game, day and age, sacks are key. In our defense, you're not going to get a whole lot of sacks because we have such a talented defense that, stats are hard to come by. Even tackles, when they get 11, 12 tackles, that's a crazy day for our defense, for anybody, because it's hard to see a person getting to 12 tackles before other people get there. But, it's just one of those things. We get kind of frustrated because you hear about Defensive Player of the Year every year, and it's never on a team with a number 1 defense or number 2 defense or even probably top 5. And that's kind of frustrating because could you ever imagine an MVP of the offensive not being on the top team, not being a top offense? You sitting there with number 25 defense and there's your defensive MVP. And on our defense, we get punished because we have great players. Denver gets punished because they have great players. And that's the unfortunate part of our league. To be a valuable player, you have to lead your defense in a way that makes other players better. And I think we have a ton of players that do that. Other great defenses have a ton of players that do that. And we have a ton of players that could be selfish and seek stats and probably get the award just seeking stats, but they'd kill a defense. And that's just something that's unfortunate.
Some of the guys on this defense are 5th, 6th year guys, even 7th year in a couple cases. How's the defense evolved with that experience?
Just guys get more comfortable with one another. We know one another so well that you don't have to think about where they're going to be. You don't have to think about what they're going to do on this play. You know exactly. You know their strengths. You know their weaknesses. You know the plays they're susceptible to. So that allows you to play even faster and even more free.
You mentioned earlier about talking points. Suddenly in a national conversation, the talking point is locker room talk. What's your take on that characterization?
I think it was a cop-out. He needed some way to divert the attention from himself. That's not how most people talk in the locker room, and I think a lot of athletes would say the same. But it allows him to divert the conversation away from him, which was the focus. So, yeah, I think it's nothing.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.